Welcome back to the Daily Poem here on the Close Reads Podcast Network. I'm David Kern. Today's poem is by William Blake, who lived from 1757 until 1827. He was an English poet. The poem that I'm going to read today is called London. It was composed in 1793 and published the following year. And like his famous poem, The Tiger, which has been read on this podcast before, this poem first appeared in his collection, Songs of Experience. This is how it goes. I wander through each chartered street, near where the chartered Thames does flow, and mark in every face I meet marks of weakness, marks of woe. In every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, in every voice, in every ban, the mind-forged manacles I hear. How the chimney sweepers cry, every blackening church appalls, and the hapless soldier's sigh runs in blood down palace walls. But most through midnight streets I hear how the youthful harlot's curse blasts the newborn infant's tear and blights with plagues the marriage hearse. My guess is it wouldn't be surprising if I were to tell you that Blake was highly influenced by the ideas, by the pursuits of the French and American revolutions. And so he was concerned certainly with the plight of everyday people. In his anthology, The Classic 100 Poems, which I mentioned many a time on this podcast, William Harmon writes that, quote, Blake's poem fits into a world to which anybody can relate, and he draws powerful emotions from everybody's ordinary fears and desires. At the same time, Blake wields a strikingly original style, which looks like some of the combinations of physical details seen in surrealist art. A sigh turns into blood running down a wall. End quote. And Harmon goes on to talk about how what we get here is not just abstractions or criticisms, but ideas embodied in people, embodied in everyday people, in the plight of everyday people, and in the pursuits of everyday people. We, of course, get this scenario where he's walking around in the streets and he's turning and seeing various terrible things, various terrible experiences, various sad goings-on and things that are truly awful. And perhaps there's no hopeful response to what he's seeing in this specific poem. But it seems like in many ways, much of Blake's work is call and response, recognizing the terrible things that he's seeing in the world, and then future poems responding to that. He's in some ways trying to work out what he's seeing and experiencing and try to figure out where the hope is. So this may not be a hopeful poem, it might be depressing, but it's calling attention to. It's like many documentaries of our day, trying to get us to see what regular people are going through. And it's trying to, I don't want to politicize it. I don't know that he's actually going for that, but I think he's trying to capture an experience and the deep empathy and sympathy that he feels for common people and things that regular everyday people were going through in his time and in the place that he was living in. And in that way, it's quite valuable. Harmon mentions that there was another poem written by Wordsworth, which is another picture of London from several hundred years ago, called Composed Upon Westminster Bridge, September 3rd, 1802. And I will go ahead and read that poem tomorrow for you. But first, I want to read this poem one more time before the end of today. So this is London by William Blake. I wander through each chartered street, near where the chartered Thames does flow, and mark in every face I meet marks of weakness, marks of woe. In every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, in every voice, in every band, the mind-forged manacles I hear. How the chimney sweepers cry, every blackening church appalls, and the hapless soldier's sigh runs in blood down palace walls. But most through midnight streets I hear, how the youthful harlot's curse blasts the newborn infant's tear, and blights with plagues the marriage hearse. This has been the Daily Poem. Thanks so much for listening. I'll be back tomorrow with another poem.